and the US administration on board.
Well, Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States of America comes at an important time. Changing dynamics in the politics of United States of America. As far as geopolitics are concerned, this comes after Prime Minister's visit to Russia as well as Ukraine. What does this visit really entail, and perhaps how exactly is the West really looking at it? Joining me on this broadcast is the former ambassador to the United States of America, former Foreign Secretary, Ambassador Shringla. Ambassador Shringla, thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. Let me straight away begin by asking you the changing times in which this visit is actually taking place and the expectation that perhaps the West would be having after Prime Minister's visit to Russia as well as Ukraine, and not to forget National Security Advisor's visit to Russia. What do you really make of it?
Well, the visit comes at a very challenging time in global affairs. We have two very serious conflicts, one in Europe and one in the Middle East, that have the propensity to become larger conflagrations. There is concern all around, especially in the developing world, that these conflicts are having a tremendous impact on the economies of nations, on the lives of people across the world. And there is obviously a strong sentiment that there should be an effort to bring an end to these conflicts. Now, Prime Minister Modi's visit to both Russia and Ukraine has to be seen in that context of the desire for peace. And what I think this visit will provide is for Prime Minister Modi to be able to brief and to inform President Biden in person on some of the discussions that he's had with both President Putin and President Zelensky. I mean, clearly he's had some long and one-to-one discussions with both of these leaders. He will definitely not only inform President Biden, but also, I think, see where there are convergences in that effort to secure an end to the conflict, or at least bring the protagonists to the negotiating table in one form or the other. And I think clearly, that sentiment or that effort is backed up by many countries across the world. And I think when the West looks at it from their perspective, they will understand that, here is, a leader who has that level of respectability and traction across the globe. Someone who, among the very rare global leaders today, who has the ability to go to both Russia and Ukraine and speak to the leadership on an equal platform. And I think it's important that the United States is part of that effort, and we bring them on board. So I think the visit has to be seen in many contexts, but this is one context, the context of trying to contribute towards global peace and security in a manner that can facilitate some sort of a resolution to the ongoing conflict in Europe.
Well, in fact, Ambassador Shringla, the role of India as a mediator. History teaches us that we have burnt our fingers playing a mediator in the past too, and that is the reason why many observers say that we have to tread this path extremely cautiously. Do you believe that it is going to be a different India altogether, if at all it assumes the role of the mediator? Before I take this question out, Ambassador Shringla, I just want to introduce this to our viewers, as the latest images are now coming in of the Prime Minister, who's landed a short while back. These are images that have come in while we continue with our conversation. Ambassador Shringla.
Yes, so I would not use the word mediator, because what actually is happening is that the Prime Minister is using the goodwill that he enjoys to try and speak to the two main protagonists, that's Russia and Ukraine, at the highest levels. Mediation is a far greater involvement in that negotiating process. We are not yet there, and I don't think at this point of time anybody's expressed a desire for mediation. I think all Prime Minister Modi has spoken about is seeing what we can do to contribute to getting these two parties together. And in that context, you need a wide amount of consultations, and the United States is definitely among the most important ones that you need to consult outside of Russia and Ukraine, because the US itself is, a very, very part of that coalition, the Western coalition that backs Ukraine. The United States is a major global power, and you need to definitely, have them on board. So, and I would see it in that context. I would hesitate to call it mediation. I would simply say that we, as a nation and as a leader, Prime Minister Modi is doing his bit to bring about facilitation to end the conflict.
Ambassador Shringla, contrary to public perception or an understanding with regards to President Biden's presidency versus President Trump's presidency, because what we saw, the relations not really changing. One would say that over a period of time, we've been able to cement it better. We've been able to make our position very clear. Things would be changing in the days to come. How do you think that is going to have an impact? Or do you think we've been able to iron this out, the differences with the Republicans and the differences with the Democrats?
I would say that, every US president in the last 10 years has contributed significantly to the relationship. Prime Minister Modi had a very good connect with President Obama. He had a very good connect with President Trump, and he has a very good connect with President Biden, as he has with Vice President Kamala Harris. So every president has done his bit to take that relationship forward. I would hesitate to compare the progress in the Trump presidency and the Biden presidency. I think both presidencies have been very fruitful in terms of the India-US cooperation, which one has to remember is backed up by bipartisan support across the political aisle in the US. Both Republicans and Democrats are in favor of a strong India-US strategic partnership. So in that context, I don't think we have hesitated. We have moved forward in each phase of the US electoral cycle. President Biden has definitely given it a great impetus. There's been, he convened the first Quad summit. He brought the Quad to the level of the leaders. President Trump had, convened the first Quad meeting at the level of foreign ministers, but it's President Trump who convened the first Quad leaders meeting. President Biden has also made sure that he's involved Prime Minister Modi in a number of major summits that he hosted, whether it's on democracy, sustainable development, climate change. He has always had Prime Minister Modi as a key speaker and a key, provider of ideas in any of these global initiatives that he has undertaken. So we've made some very, very valuable progress. In the last 10 years, I think, have been especially significant. We are coming to that milestone of 25 years of close India-US relations. But I would look at the last 10 years as being absolutely seminal in this regard, because the last 10 years have seen a qualitative jump. We have been able to sign all the foundational agreements on defense.
Can I just intervene?
Sorry, yes.
Ambassador, can I just intervene here, because you make a very interesting point. You say that there is a qualitative jump in the relationship. Would you elaborate on what you believe is so very different and significant achievement in the last 10 years?
Sure. We've gone from preparing the ground, I think, to actual implementation. If you look at technology, today we are collaborating jointly on cutting-edge technologies. We are co-producing the jet engine for our light combat aircraft, our cutting-edge aircraft. The US is sharing with us the latest technology on drones, the Predator drones, which are purchasing from the US. We are working on a number of new technologies under the initiative for critical and emerging technologies that have been signed between the two countries. The US is funding startups. I'm not talking about a country, but venture capitalists from the United States have really been behind much of the funding that has made the Indian startup sector such a vibrant one. And of course, if you look at areas like defense, as I said, I mean, we have come from, let's say, buying equipment today to co-producing equipment, cutting-edge equipment, and I think we will be shortly going into joint production and manufacturing, joint designing. So it is a qualitative shift in terms of the relationship, and of course, needless to say that we have been involved, as I said, in global decision making along with the US in areas that are of interest to both countries. And I mentioned a few, such as climate change. Many of the serious issues of the day are those in which we are at the high table with the United States. And that is, again, a qualitative difference that has come about. You were consulted earlier, but today you're a part of that, I would say, vital, high table that makes decisions and decides on global issues of importance.
Ambassador, in terms of the challenges that we face right now, not just within the Quad, but also the fact that we are talking about two global conflict which dominates the negotiating table, dominates much of what we speak or what we promise for tomorrow. Where do you think could the possible setbacks or the possible roadblock could be in this?
So if you look at the fact that, we are not exactly on the same page when it comes to the Ukraine conflict, yet President Biden convened a summit of the Quad leaders in which he says, I understand where India is coming from. And I want to assure all the Quad leaders that our focus on the Indo-Pacific will not falter because of the Ukraine, because of Europe. We will continue that focus on the Indo-Pacific. The Quad will continue to be important. And that India's sort of position, where it comes from, is something that we can understand. That's very important because the US views the relationship as a strategic partnership that transcends some of the minor differences that could come in your approach and your thinking on certain issues. And that's important for both countries as we move along. It's important that strategic, what we call a global comprehensive strategic partnership, is taken forward by both sides, irrespective of who becomes president or prime minister. The larger picture is not lost sight of. President Biden did not allow many of the small and irritants that could creep into the relationship. He kept the Democratic Party and Congress at a certain, I would say, standoff position when it came to handling the relationship, because he felt that this was an important relationship. So it's all the more critical that as President Biden demits office, the two leaders meet, as they would do shortly, to take stock of where we are and also to look at where we could go forward. Because if Vice President Kamala Harris becomes president, there is expected to be continuity. And at any rate, at the official level, it's important that the message of that I would say continuity and momentum in relations is continued. So it's a very important meeting from the bilateral perspective. It's got a plurilateral perspective in the Quad. It's got a multilateral perspective in the United Nations. And of course, it's got a community perspective, which is absolutely essential when it comes to the United States and the Indian community there. So just to put it in context, but again, reiterating the point that there are challenges, we should be under no doubt that those challenges could persist, could come up in a more visible manner in the next year. But I think what is important is that we keep our eye on the ball. We continue to work on the relationship. The fact that we are going to host the next Quad meeting is very important also, because a new US president and a new Japanese prime minister will come to India to attend the Quad summit next year, probably. And this will give us not only an opportunity to interface directly with some of our key partners, but would also allow that relationship to be taken forward by a new leadership in both these countries.
Ambassador Shringla, I just want to, touch upon, while there's been a lot of rumors with regards to whether at all Prime Minister Modi is going to meet the former President Trump. He's already made an announcement saying that he would be meeting Prime Minister Modi. Does that really have any sort of an impact? Because that has led to a lot of speculations and a lot of debate over the fact that whether at all should we really be putting our entire effort on building our relationship with President Trump, if at all that does not work out and you have President Kamala Harris really coming in. Are we reading too much into it, if at all, even if there is a meeting between the former president and Prime Minister Modi?
Well, Prime Minister Modi knows President Trump well because he has dealt with him extensively when he was president of the United States. You have to recall that we had the famous Howdy Modi event in Houston, attended by both President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, and then the Namaste Trump event in India in 2020. But having said that, my sense is that the Prime Minister will meet both contenders, Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And of course, I don't know exactly how the schedule goes, but generally the attempt would be to meet both, because we always emphasize on the bipartisan nature of the relationship, and we would, I think, be more comfortable reaching out to both sides. Don't forget that Prime Minister Modi knows Vice President Kamala Harris also quite well, having met her on more than one occasion, 2021 and last year, in her capacity as Vice President. And so there is a good dynamic there as well. So I think it makes sense to meet both of them, if that's possible in scheduling terms of all concerned.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Shringla, for joining us on this special broadcast and putting this into perspective. It's always a pleasure having you on Republic TV with your vast experience and your understanding of geopolitics and geostrategy. Undoubtedly brings us up to speed about what's really happening on the ground. Thank you very much.